the opportunities we have for business in our country, the skills of these Zimbabweans acquired over the years in South Africa and other centers of diaspora our people have stayed over the last few years. They believe in you, and this is why we have this full house today at the embassy. I want to thank all of you for having the time from your busy schedules to come and grace our day here at the embassy. This is not my day, this is the President's day. So I want to thank the President, the ministers who are here, everybody who is here, and leave the podium to its rightful honors. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Comrade Ambassador. We move with the program. The next person to take to the stage is Dr. S. Mutanga, a business person, resident in the Republic of South Africa.
I think I need the eye.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, thank you, Your Excellency, for gracing this occasion yet again to your diasporans. Ministers present, we have accompanied our presidents. We thank you for accompanying him. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Zimbabwe to South Africa, Ambassador Isaac Moyo, our Consular General, Mr. Mkonowe Shuro, the diplomatic team that is around here, all protocol observed, distinguished guests. I stand here on behalf of Zim SA Forum. Your Excellency, prior to this event today, I wish on behalf of Zim SA to express our sincere apologies for the mishap that happened when a letter that was signed by our president circulated through social media and the media platforms. It wasn't the intention to cross the path as it did, but we sincerely apologize, and this has been actually been communicated, our sincere apology to the Consular General and the Ambassador. Leadership of the Zim SA Forum, the chairperson of the Western Cape, Mr. Julius Shamu, chair lady, Zim SA Forum, Ms. Barbara, chairman of Zim Youth, Mr. Brian, and of course recognizing in a special way our sponsors, in particular Menai Capital, registered as Nzo Resource in Zimbabwe, and Milko Group, who are also engaging with the Zimbabwe Defense Industries for a partnership. We thank you for making this event possible in a short space within 4 days. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to extend our sincere gratitude to the corporate world that has been behind this. In a particular way, I also want to mention Wanga Power Projects that have sponsored in a unique way quite a number of things, among which includes the crocodile cake. I never knew that a cake can be made to denote and provide what is it, a crocodile picture, and I've seen it for the first time, breaking new ground. Your Excellency, today marks 1 year, 7 months since the formation of Zim SA Forum, and we are proud to say that through the ambassador efforts we got a chance to brief you at his house last year, expressing our intention to form an organization aimed at bringing diasporans, Zimbabwean diasporans together, as well as fellow hosts, our South African counterparts, to join us in participating in efforts of government to positively impact the trajectory of our economy. Throughout this period, the ambassador has made sure that you don't miss any of our conferences, of which the last one, only 5 months ago, at the capital in Empire in Centon, when you were still the Vice President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Today we meet again on this auspicious occasion, having you as our President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, the first diasporans to receive you, just recognizing that across the border, they are my people. We value that. It was through timeless creed and diligent and peaceful spirit of Zimbabweans that the evil and greed was defeated through a peaceful transition on Operation Restore Legacy. We taught the whole world how it's done, and we have earned the respect, both on the ground and at the highest echelons of leadership around the world. We thank you and our wise army generals who defended our constitution and sovereignty in such a peaceful and bloodless, respectful manner. On the economic front, we have watched over time and followed your consistency in sending a positive message to the world, the investment and financial sector, making commitments to the Zimbabwe that Zimbabwe is indeed open for business. Your message of forgiveness, unity, and non-retribution to those who defaulted in various ways is heard loud and clear. This was seen by returning of those who thought that the mouth of the crocodile was open to devour them, but today they walk around the streets of Zimbabwe freely enjoying their right as citizens. They have been in the diaspora, but today they are free to come back. We thank you for your pursuit for peace, unity, healing, forgiveness, so that the nation can let bygones be bygones and we move on. And as Zimbabweans, we are capable of moving on. Zimbabwe has hope. The future of Zimbabwe is bright, and it takes only us to take Zimbabwe to the next level. On the work that we have done, here is our brief report to you, Your Excellency. The work which we have done to date, together with the unrelenting support of our ambassador. After the conference in Centon, the investors whom you visited, in particular those, the coal mines in Mpumalanga, Mina capital, have now registered a company in Zimbabwe called Zimbabwe Resources, which will focus on mining and export, energy and production, and of course expedite other commodity opportunities that exist in the country. They have asked me to relay the message that after the holidays, they will be setting up offices in Harare and finalizing opening up of Zimbabwe Resources bank account. We are proud that as ZMSA Forum, this great achievement is an accomplishment. There is Trezor, a capital company registered in Mauritius, which has now jointly with Mercury Corporation Zimbabwe registered a company called Imbelo Incorporated in Zimbabwe. Well on their way to Zimbabwe, and they're in the final negotiations with the central bank on security, and they are at the final stages to secure 200 million, 100 million to offset the debt that will see John Deere and Afgri delivering state-of-the-art farming equipment. Small and big through use now, pay later concession that we have negotiated with both entities, ARDA in the Ministry of Agriculture. We expect this to be done and be out of the way by the end of January 2018 and beginning of February. And on the other hand, 100 million will go towards infrastructure development, particularly our roads, dams, and energy generation. Last but not least, Your Excellency, we have submitted 2 proposals for our ailing airline, Air Zimbabwe, to both Air Zimbabwe Board and the Minister to consider these. These proposals are structured firstly to offset the 220 million debt which Air Zimbabwe has, and subject to adjustment, another 193 million to invest in 10 new aircrafts, valued at about 16.1 million, which needs to be injected for training and spares, and around 10.9 million for spending on safety, marketing, and operations. Your Excellency, there are many more, but because of time, I have to end my speech today by saying Zimbabwe is a virgin country in terms of development. It gives us a chance to develop infrastructure of the future, new highways, railway lines, with the drive towards a low-carbon future, green energy, and development that will Zimbabwe have more advanced and first world, just be like the first world countries. It should at least take the whole world another 30 or 50, even 100 years to catch up with the development that should happen in our country. Instead of dualization, may we please build even super highways and fast train rails and bring back the tramways in the cities of travels. On closing, on a lighter note, Your Excellency, we beg to you not to take our ambassador. And we beg to you to let him stay longer, but you have taken him away from us. That's the only complaint we have. We shared with him this past Saturday when we had a befitting farewell for him. But what a befitting elevation to our ambassador, a steadfast, diligent, patient, kind, astute man he is. We have lost a father and a friend who welcomed us to his home, office. A chat with him would make us feel at home and safe, and feel like our problems have gone away. So long, Ambassador, so long. We know you will protect our country with everything you have, like you have protected us here in South Africa, in a foreign land. We thank you for your service. With this, I say thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ntanga. Thank you for the inspirational words. Let me take this opportunity to invite Jonathan Chimandamba, another presenter, to come to the conference.
Sorry, let me try and organize myself, yeah? Okay. Afternoon. Thank you, Program Director. I'm truly overwhelmed by this opportunity you have given me to represent the dreams and aspirations of the million Zimbabweans in diaspora. I thank you. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, on behalf of diasporans, we congratulate you on your recent appointment to the presidency. Your ascendancy has brought renewed hope and optimism to the people of Zimbabwe. And with what we are witnessing, we are seeing promising signs from the government of Zimbabwe. Under your leadership, Zimbabwe is likely to emerge from the ashes and take its rightful position in the global economic village. Once again, Your Excellency, congratulations, and we look forward to your presidency. Thank you. Ambassador Isaac Moyo, thank you for opening and your welcoming remarks. It is with sad happiness that we congratulate you on your new appointment as DG for Central Intelligence. It is under your guidance and leadership that many diaspora formations emerged in South Africa. Under your leadership, we formed the Diaspora Infrastructure Development Group, which I'm the executive chairman of. Under your leadership, the embassy became approachable and understood in terms of its role to the Zimbabweans in diaspora. In as much as we are sad to lose you, In your new role, Zimbabwe stands to benefit more. Congratulations, Your Excellency Ambassador Isaac Moyo, on your appointment. Honorable Ministers, Consular General, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the media, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. Since the late 90s, more so in the last decades, Zimbabwe has seen a large contingent of its highly skilled and educated people migrating to diaspora. The reasons of the migration varies from the search of either political freedom or for the search of economic freedom. I believe, Your Excellency President Mnangagwa, for a brief moment in the last recent months you were part of our diaspora, but you have become first diaspora to return back to Zimbabwe. I stand here today representing diaspora. As the many in diaspora, we continue to ask ourselves a few simple but pertinent questions following the recent changes in Zimbabwe. What does the future of Zimbabwe look like? Should we go back to Zimbabwe? What role do we play in Zimbabwe? Can we trust and place our hope in the new leadership? These are just some but a few questions that diaspora grapple with, Your Excellency, and can only be answered through action. As Zimbabweans in diaspora, we have two paths to choose from. Either to be absorbed in the self-belief and expectation that Zimbabwe will be fixed by those living in Zimbabwe, or we could choose a path where we ask ourselves, what can we do for our country? Your Excellency, I take this opportunity to remind diaspora of one famous quote by President John F. Kennedy. Ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what can you do for the country. My fellow diaspora, the time has come. Ask yourselves what you can do for your country and not what the country can do for you. As diaspora, we can play a fundamental role in developing our country of origin. The networks and the business interests we have established outside Zimbabwe are an untapped virtue. Late last year, a few of us in the diaspora, through our association called Brawlers, heeded the call from you, Your Excellency, a call you made to us in diaspora to lead efforts of rebuilding the Zimbabwean economy. We decided to be bold and to start work towards an agenda that could see us aggregate diaspora investments and skills towards the recapitalization of Zimbabwe's critical infrastructure. This led to the formation of Diaspora Infrastructure Development Group, which recently won the tender jointly with Transnet to execute the $400 million recapitalization of the National Railways of Zimbabwe. The NRZ project alone will set a tone and precedence Zimbabwe needs. The project will inspire confidence to the many businesses in diaspora, and that yes, we can do business with the government of Zimbabwe. The timing of the NRZ project couldn't have been better. Some important points to note on the NRZ project as an example to the opportunity that lies ahead for Zimbabwe. The installed capacity is about 18 million tons. Honorable Minister of Transport reminded me one other time that at its peak, NRZ moved 17 million tons. Last year, NRZ managed to move 2.7 million tons. These simple numbers show us the level of opportunity not only in NRZ, but carries through in many other industries. With our investment, we hope to bring the capacity back to above 10 million tons. However, for this to be sustainable, we need the other backbone industries such as mining and agriculture to start ticking. That can only happen with each of us in diaspora and at home taking a step at rebuilding the various parts of the economy. Us, as Infrastructure Development Group, we are focused on the critical infrastructure industries. This includes infrastructure for rail, roads, energy, aviation, water, agriculture, and telecommunications. Addressing these infrastructural needs will unlock activities such as mineral beneficiation and manufacturing. Zimbabwe is a sleeping giant. I know the Honorable Minister Chinamasa's budget statement targets above 4% growth GDP, but for a country like Zimbabwe, coming from a low base, there is a real possibility of achieving double-digit growth rates for a few years in a row. Your Excellency, I would like to close by saying this. Zimbabwe needs its diaspora. Diaspora needs its Zimbabwe. If we as diaspora fail to actively seek ways to rebuild Zimbabwe, then our country will continue to live in the abyss of the new dark age. We cannot continue to take pride and brag about living in the first world cities like London and New York, and yet we do nothing about Mushakwedu. Your Excellency and diaspora, one former president said this to the people of Zimbabwe recently. Let's put our shoulders to the wheel. Mvura yakanaya ende itinorima. Isu iweneni tine basa. Merry Christmas, Your Excellency, and God bless Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Donovan Chimandamba. Thank you for the humor. I'm sure we all appreciate that one. Now, moving on with our program, it is my honor to invite the Minister of Finance and Economic Development of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Honorable Patrick Chinamasa, to come forward to tell us who we are waiting for here. Honorable Chinamasa.
Comrade President, I feel completely overwhelmed by the presence of this gathering. I did not expect that would come to receive in such large numbers and welcome our new president. I thank you so much. My task is to introduce to you Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, just to let you know a bit about who he is. I'm sure that you gather through the social media all sorts of information. But let me try to give you as factually as I can do it. As you are aware, all of you, and this is the reason why you are gathered here today, there have been significant changes in the leadership of the party and government, and all this was packed in a matter of 2 weeks. 2 weeks. There were trigger moments or trigger events, and I'll just mention a few. The interface rallies have something to do about why we are here. You know, the hate language, the propagation of tribalism that we all witnessed at those rallies, the denigration of senior party leadership that we all witnessed and heard and can be repeated on social media, those interface rallies which departed from their original purpose, which was to interact with the youth, to get their concerns and be able to address the concerns of youth, nothing of the sort happened. Instead, we saw progressively the party being driven away from its liberation roots. And that was very destabilizing within the ranks of the party. That was trigger event number one, or events number one, but I take them as one. Then, of course, following this series of interface rallies, youth interface rallies, the Comrade President, who was then VP, was dismissed. And this was on the 6th of November, I think I remember. He received the letter of dismissal at 4 p.m. And soon after that, he was stripped of all security, both on his person and at home. And it was clear that his safety was not or could not be guaranteed within the territory of Zimbabwe. So he became, as was mentioned here, He became a refugee. But that triggered the events that followed. The war veterans whom we as a country, we must truly remain indebted to, had stood steadfast in defense of the liberation struggle, in defense of the sovereignty and interests of our country. They organized a solidarity march, which took place on 18th November 2017. And we are all aware of the overwhelming support from all corners of the world. And I believe this event was replicated in all the major cities of the world, certainly where the diasporans are. So it was very clear that diasporans and those at home are at one, that they want a change in the leadership of the party so that the country can go forward. Next, of course, on the 19th of November, there was a special session of the Central Committee because our provinces had demanded the sitting of the Central Committee. Had also demanded that there should be a change in the leadership. And they've also expressed that Comrade Mnangagwa should take over the leadership of both the party and government. So when the special session of the Central Committee met on the 19th of November 2007, it took historic decisions. So I regard 19th of November as very historic. The Central Committee met to make historic decisions which will reverberate down the line in the history of our party and government. They took a decision to recall the former president from both the party and government. They demanded and gave ultimatum to the former president to resign by midday on the 20th or else face an impeachment. Of course, I will not forget that one of the trigger events to bring all this into play were the interventions of the army. This took place on the 13th of November, started with a statement from General Chiwenga, who basically said the country was going nowhere, was going downhill, and that the army was moving in to stabilize the situation, to avoid conflict within the country. This was followed by another statement from the army by Major General S.B. Moyo, now our foreign minister, and sitting here with us today. His statement was forthright that the purpose of the intervention was to remove the criminal elements which had captured and surrounded the former president. And I'm happy that that objective was realized. On the 20th of November, impeachment proceedings started. This followed a parliamentary caucus on the 20th, which resolved that impeachment proceedings against the former president should start. On the 21st, impeachment proceedings started, and they were only interrupted by the resignation of the former president. So as we sit here, the culmination of all these events was the inauguration of His Excellency, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, as President of the country on 24th November 2017. He had already been made President of the party on the 19th of November through the special session of the Central Committee of ZANU-PF. But added to that, in terms of our constitution, I want just to show that everything that we did was done constitutionally and procedurally. In terms of our constitution, in the event of a vacancy occurring in the presidency, and the vacancy occurred with the resignation of the former president, the party in power, the ruling power, has a right to nominate a candidate. And the decision of the special session had already been taken that Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa will be our nominee to fill the vacancy thus created in the state presidency. You excuse me, I'm taking longer to introduce the speaker of our meeting today. But just a brief background who he is. He is one of the first cadres who were trained militarily to start the guerrilla struggle to liberate Zimbabwe. And as you are aware, we had 16, 17 years of armed struggle from 1963 until 2008. He was one of the first to be trained. He was one of the first to be trained 1980, sorry. What did I say? Yeah, I like your humor. He was trained in Egypt. At that time, he was trained under the ban of ZAPU, that is Zipra. Later, he switched to go to Zanla and was trained in People's Republic of China. And he came and formed the Crocodile Group, which went to sabotage infrastructure within the country. They were the first to come in to start the guerrilla struggle, the liberation struggle. This is why the moniker, you know, is referred to as Ngwena, the crocodile. This is coming from that history, that he was member of the core of the crocodile group, which was trained to fight the colonial regime. He was arrested through betrayal. In any struggle, there are betrayals. He suffered, he was a victim of the betrayal of people he trusted. He was betrayed, arrested, and he spent over 10 years in prison at Kami. Was released. During his stay in prison, he studied. He educated himself through correspondence. After release, he went to do law at the University of Zambia. He graduated, briefly went into practice in Lusaka, but rejoined the armed struggle and was at the Congress in 1977, appointed special assistant in the president's office. That was in 1977. And when I said the president's office, it was the former president's office, Comrade Mugabe. You must recall, of course, that our history, our Central Committee, our party, has had now 2 instances of recalling its leadership. The first was Nabaniki Strole. He was recalled when it was discovered that he had lost direction. And more recently, for the events that I've narrated, we have had to recall former President Mugabe. Over the years, from 1980, he first became Minister of State Security, the position he occupied 1980 to 87, became Minister of Justice from 87 to 2000. In between, he also became Minister of Social Amenities and Housing. He later, in 2000, became Speaker of the National Assembly, a position he occupied from 2000 to 2008. He was appointed Minister of Defense, then Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and then in 2014, at our Congress, he was appointed Vice President of ZANU-PF, a position he occupied uninterrupted until the dismissal on 6 November 2017. I was joking to him when he was dismissed. He did not know that the party had also expelled him from the party. He only knew that he had been expelled from the position as vice president of the country. But of course, later he was also expelled from the vice presidency in the party. But the special session of 19 November nullified all the expulsions, stated or unstated, and restored him to his former positions in the Central Committee as vice president of the party and also as a member of ZANU-PF. And I'm very happy to say that after his appointment by the special session of ZANU-PF and his appointment as state president and the inauguration, he has given the country hope and direction. And I want to call upon all of us to give him all the support that I think he deserves. As we enter this new, I called it in my state budget, national budget, new economic order. We need to have a new beginning, which we all know cannot happen overnight and cannot be effortless. It requires the collective will of all of us. So it is with this background and with this introduction that I have the singular honor and pleasure to introduce and call upon His Excellency
May we sit, those who are able to sit. Our Director of Ceremonies, the Zimbabwe Ambassador to South Africa, Comrade Isaac Moyo, Embassy staff and your families, Zimbabweans and South African captains of industry and commerce who are here, distinguished guests, members of the academia and students, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I'll come back to my speech later. I'm exceedingly grateful that you, my brothers and sisters from Zimbabwe, brothers and sisters South African, brothers and sisters the world over, have gathered here in your huge numbers to receive me and my delegation. I have come with 4 ministers. I would like to introduce them to you. May you stand up and look the other side, perhaps. You have already known Chinamasa as the Minister of Finance. You can take your seat. Minister Gumbo is Minister of Transport Infrastructure Development, Joram Gumbo. Minister Bima, Minister of Industry, Commerce and Cooperation, what was it? Enterprise Development, it's a new ministry. Then I have the young man. Until 3 days ago, he was Major General Sibusiso Moyo, but I promoted him 2 days ago to General. He's now General Moyo. Then, take a seat, I have this other young man. I would like to say is the most controversial Zimbabwean I have known. Chris Mnangagwa is the chairman of the War Veterans Association. I had to bring him closer because he fires from the hip. So he's now with me. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, he's a Minister of State. That's okay. Comrades, Minister Shinamasa has given you the background that has resulted in me being here. There has been occasion among ourselves as a leadership, both in government and the party, which were very challenging. And we all, I believe, love our country. And we all looked for time in the history of our country when again Zimbabweans would be proud to be Zimbabweans and at home. You are so many here in the diaspora because of, in particular, economic challenges that beset our country. I wish to say, may we together agree that bygones be bygones and look into the future with hope. From now on, Zimbabwe is open for business. Yes, there will be political issues, but primarily it's economics and trade for Zimbabwe. To achieve that, we need to revisit our own legislation in Zimbabwe to open up business. With my team, we first began to look at the indigenization legislation. We are in the process of amending and updating that piece of legislation, but we allowed Minister of Finance to announce a major shift in that policy with regard to extractive industry in Zimbabwe. In the past, the policy was that investors coming to Zimbabwe were required to agree to 51% for Zimbabwe and the 49% for the investor. We have now changed that to limit that application to 2 minerals only, which we believe for now we do not have adequate technology nor know-how to assess the quantum of those 2 minerals, that is platinum and diamonds. So we have reserved those 2 minerals so that the question of 51 49% applies to those. But for the rest of the other 19 minerals in Zimbabwe, it's open, totally open. There is no need for government participation. It's what you choose to do. You can come and mine gold, can mine chrome, coal, nickel, lithium, whatever. No application of the 51.49%. However, we still have kept the third category, the reserved sector. I am persuaded by my colleagues that it is not necessary to have somebody fly from Canada, America, or Beijing, or Moscow to come and set up a high-dressing shop in Harare. That can be done by Zimbabweans. So that's the reserved sector, where our own people can do those things. If, however, there are special circumstances which may require us to waive that, we have given that discretion, where perhaps skills or technology may be introduced, but we have reserved that for Zimbabweans. Having said that, our economy has three major drivers for it to grow. And I'm happy that you, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, after my visit here some few months ago with some of the ministers who are here, there is a team of comrades from the diaspora. We have come to demonstrate that they remember where home is. And we have awarded them a contract to refurbish our railways, a 400 million contract to refurbish our railways. But that is not the only thing that is there in that area. In the area of railways, we need to refurbish, modernize the current network in the country. Secondly, we need to introduce further new network of railways in Zimbabwe. And the third, we also need to construct a railway line because both Maputo and the Beira are now congested, and Durban is also congested. We now have on the cards the construction of another line from Zimbabwe to Makuze, north of Beira. And it's open again for bidding. This is with regard to railways. The comrade who was here who mentioned that, yes, we have taken up the issue of dualization of the South-North Highway, that is Bite Bridge to Harare, Harare to Chirundu, dualization. The first part has been taken, that is Bite Bridge to Harare. We still are open to people to come in for the ring road around Harare, as well as the dualization from Harare to Chirundu. And also, second phase of road construction, dualization from Mtare in the east to Plumtree in the west. A third one from Bite Bridge via Bulawayo to Victoria Falls, dualization. All those are open for investment. This is why I say Zimbabwe is open for business, for those who want to make money. Then, in the area of agriculture, yes, the other comrade who was here joked about mvura yakanaya, we are murime. Ichokwadi. Kana mvura yanaya tinofanirwa kurima. Tirime, tigorima. We introduced command agriculture. The major tenet in this command agriculture, some people will think that it is communism. No. It is command agriculture. First and foremost, it's voluntary. You volunteer to enter the program. We worked out that to feed Zimbabwe, we need at least 2 million metric tons of grain, not including small grains, but the major staple food, maize. We need 2 million metric tons. Out of the 2 million metric tons, 1.5 metric tons is what we use. The balance, 500,000, is strategic reserve. So to produce that amount of grain, we made the calculation that we need 400,000 hectares of land under maize. So when we introduced the program and asked people to offer hectares for the program, for instance, if we have 100 hectares, you can offer 50, which we will finance. We give the seed, we give you fertilizer, chemicals, diesel, everything, 5 items. We give you, but you pay back. We must have the culture of accountability and responsibility. We made the calculation that what we give you, when you look at the yield of 1 hectare, generally, under such supervision, the hectare will give you a minimum of 5 tons. And only 3 tons will pay for the loan. The other 2 tons are yours. But majority of our farmers produce much more than 5 tons per hectare, sometimes 8, others up to 15 tons a hectare. But only 3 tons you pay the loan. And what is good, everything is delivered at your farm. You don't need to bother about transport. You don't need to go to visit a bank and so on. Everything is done. So with that, we are saying bye-bye Kunzara. However, in the event of drought, then this aspect of the program cannot succeed. We therefore made calculation and said, how much land do we need to put under irrigation to produce the same 2 million or 3 million metric tons of grain? And we need at least 300,000 hectares of land under irrigation. And so far, we are around 159,000 hectares under irrigation. We have struck a deal with the Belarus and Brazil to supply us irrigation equipment to cover 300,000 hectares, so that when there is rain, we succeed. When there is a drought, we succeed. Because we have enough water bodies and we continue to create more water bodies. That is about agriculture. However, we feel we should not continue to remain primary in terms of production. We must go agro-processing to add value, beneficiation, value addition to what we produce. For instance, in relation to cotton, we produce around 450,000 metric tons of cotton, and only 30 to 35% is consumed in our industry in Zimbabwe. The balance of 75% we sell raw. So we need people again in that sector to come and invest. So we grow the cotton and we support cotton farmers. We process until we produce cloth in Zimbabwe. So that value chain requires people to come in. Going to the area of soybean, which is for cooking oil and so on. We get cooking oil from soybean as well from maize. We are getting our cooking oil from here, either from Zambia and other surrounding countries. But again, we've now worked out how much land do we need to put under plow in order to produce enough soybean in the country so that our oil expressors get the raw material produced at home and the whole value chain is done at home. And all that area, we are only something like 20% capacity utilization in that area. So there's 80% vacuum which requires to be filled by people who can come and invest in that sector. Furthermore, we may now move to other infrastructure development, ICT. As you were here, we've been told by the ambassador that, in fact, the ambassador asked me to meet a few comrades in the diaspora at the embassy. So I thought I would find a few selected comrades here at the embassy to chat over a cup of tea. But I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm so happy that you are so many of you. May I say that I am hopeful. My team is hopeful. There is no business as usual. Things have changed. It's a new era. I am from the military. If it is left 10, it is left 10. If it is right 10, it's right 10. No confusion. Left 10, others go right 10. I know. My ministers are very clear about that stance, and I believe that together we can move forward. I'm aware about the abundant skills which rests here among you comrades from Zimbabwe. I appeal to you to come to Zimbabwe whenever you can and look at opportunities that now present themselves. We are almost 16 to 18 years behind others. We don't need to invent the wheel. We need to catch up and overtake them. And to do so, we, the politicians, must create an environment where you can survive. To do so and to achieve that, there must continuously be dialogue between those in government and those in the private sector, telling us your challenges which you want us to correct, and us, of course, telling you our challenges which we would want you to correct. That way we can move our country forward together. We should have no dual between the public sector and the private sector. We are all brothers and sisters. The country is ours together. It is not the country of ZANU-PF, it is not the country of MDC, it is the country of Zimbabweans. It doesn't matter what occupation you are doing currently. That is important. No piece, no skill is regarded as not important. Every skill, every participation by a Zimbabwean in the Zimbabwean economy into our environment, to me, is critical. We need to create a Zimbabwe which we shall hand over to the next generation, and they'll be proud of us. This is the moment we have created for ourselves as a country, that we should do better. Yes, we had mistakes in the past. Some of those mistakes make us learn about those mistakes so that we don't repeat them. Let us commit new mistakes, not old ones. And I have no doubt that Zimbabweans have a capacity to move forward. We should again be able to move around the capitals of the world with our heads up and say, I'm Zimbabwean. And the people say, yes, indeed, you are a Zimbabwean. You are a proud people. Perhaps let me look at my speech. Okay. Yes, I'm just being reminded. I have no time for that one now. I came here to pay my respects to my elder brother, President Jacob Zuma. Part of the background is that during the war, he was the head of security, both military and civil, under Mkhonto Sizwe. I was the head of security, military intelligence as well as civil intelligence in Zandla. So we worked together before as brothers in the security sector. Then he became president, and I spent a good 16 days as a diasporian here in South Africa. And after walking some 30 kilometers, crossing the border into Mozambique, fortunately, I found a card in my wallet. What my brother didn't mention is that after being fired at 4 o'clock, by 9 o'clock I was already going away because intelligence had brought my attention about the next moves intended to eliminate me, so I left. Then I got a card, fortunately, which bear the name of a colleague here, whom I found, and he picked me, Maposa. So I came here and I was well looked after. I had good communication with the leadership here, not openly. You understand. Then my colleagues back home asked me to come back and join them in molding our future. And this is the young man. I've banned him from putting on uniform anymore. I retired him a few days ago. He's now Minister of Foreign Affairs, General Moyo. And also General Chiwenga. I retired him 2 days ago. Yeah, I retired him 2 days ago. He will have another assignment very soon. And we'll proceed. We had our Congress in Zimbabwe last Friday. Yes. I was confirmed as president of ZANU-PF. Within 6 months, we are going for elections, which I have no doubt, presidential elections as well as parliamentary elections, which I hope I'm going to win. Thank you. And then here, I think their conference, which finished this morning, I have to meet the president of the ANC, the new president of the ANC, in less than 6 minutes from now. So This is why the ambassador came here. I now wish you well. But most importantly, my brothers and sisters, Zimbabwe is your home. You are welcome. Whatever offense we committed to you, please put that behind you. The word says, forgive. Forgive. I forgive the cabal. I have said, bygones be bygones, and they are back in the country except for the 3 who still are doing something funny, but it will also end. So with those few remarks, may God bless you. God bless Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. I think it is courteous and also within the Zimbabwe tradition just to say thank you. So the Consul General, Mr. Ngoro, just to say thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, President Mnangagwa, Honorable Ministers here present, Ambassador Isaac Moyo, fellow Zimbabweans, I wish on your behalf, diasporans, to thank His Excellency for taking time out of his busy schedule to grace this occasion, to narrate to us the way forward. As he did enunciate the opportunities that avail themselves in the various sectors, it is upon you, diasporans, to take a piece of that cake, to get back home, have a great trek to the north of this country, and let us make Zimbabwe great again. It is within our capabilities. Let's use the synergies that we have managed to engage the fellow South Africans and other nationals in South Africa. Let's use that space and take them with us to invest back home. I wish to thank all those companies that made this event a possibility. Various individuals, industrialists, both from Zimbabwe and South Africa. I thank you all for having made this occasion a success that it has been. I never thought you would come in these numbers, but I'm overwhelmed as Consul General to say we have a lot of people in South Africa, and as representative of the people, I wish you are all well documented and are doing a good job in South Africa, so that we carry the good name that we always have, and that with your good deeds, we then can carry it to Zimbabwe. I thank you all. Thank you, Excellency.
Hello? Please, let's remain seated while His Excellency leaves. Let's remain seated.
Let's remain seated whilst the leadership is going out. Let's remain seated whilst the leadership is going out, please. Let the leadership go out first. Let the leadership go out first. Let's remain seated. Let's remain seated.
All right, there we have it. Interim Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa on the charm offensive, opening his address by declaring that Zimbabwe is now officially open for business. Everyone is now welcome to do business in Zimbabwe. Well, particularly the controversial mining sector, adding that the 51-49 quota has now been scrapped. And another sector which arguably was the genesis of that country's crumbling economy, the agricultural farming sector, is on the brink of revitalization, as President Mnangagwa announced that the government will finance half of the commercial farms and provide the necessary apparatus and fuel. And of course, he did say that they will have to pay back in the spirit of accountability. And just yesterday, he told a joint parliamentary sitting that his government is committed to open Zimbabwe out to investment by building a free and transparent economy which benefits Zimbabwean and is welcoming to outsiders. And he also extended an olive branch to his detractors. As a matter of fact, just yesterday or a couple of days ago, on the 16th of December to be precise, he tweeted that my presidency should not be seen as a rise of a certain region or tribe, but should be seen as a rise of total unity. I am an emissary of all the veterans and heroes dead or alive. I am a president for everyone. He tweeted, that is, he said on his official Twitter account on the 16th of December. He also paid tribute to President Jacob Zuma, with whom he worked quite fervently during the days of the struggle for both countries. And he did say that he really took care of him when he was ousted as the deputy president of ZANU-PF and deputy president of the country. And we do understand that he is due to meet the new ANC President Cyril Ramaposa any minute from now. Breaking news this hour: Zimbabwean President Mnangagwa has just announced that the 5941 quota has been scrapped in Zimbabwe in the spirit of opening up the country to investment. This is News Today. Thank you so much for joining us. And it is 30 minutes past 4 o'clock.